Hello and welcome to the Hippos R Us Gaming YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about tilt. What is tilt, the types of tilt, and how can it affect us when we're playing a game. So I broke out one of my favorite games, one of the games that does tilt me quite a bit, but also I have quite a lot of play time on, playing Dungreed here. So it's a roguelike, which means the run is going to be different each time. I'm on the third section, so I'm at where I usually start to get tilted. Now I'm a little overpowered right now on this character, but it's not likely that I'm going to succeed. Just because I know myself. But I am in an OP place, so I could kind of play and hopefully experience, and maybe not experience tilt, but show some examples of things that can be tilting. So before we get started, I want to just take the moment to really define what tilt is. Tilt in gaming is when a player gets really frustrated or angry during a game. This can happen when the player loses a lot or when things are not quite going how they would like it to go. And when somebody is on tilt, they might actually start acting impulsively, take unnecessary risks, making bad decisions, and all of it can lead to further losses. So it's kind of like a snowball effect. So when we think about gaming, we think a lot about if we're in a competitive match, like League of Legends is probably a really good example where when somebody gets ahead, they do what's called snowballing, where it gets out of hand. The snowball gets bigger. It's like rolling a snowball down the hill. That's the analogy. This is like snowballing, but in the opposite. It's in an adverse way that's going to affect us in a negative way. That's not quite beneficial for us. So when this happens to pro players too. It can really throw off games. And I wish I had examples off the top of my head of some pro play where this has happened. I think what comes to mind, again, I watch more. See, like that right there is something that's quite tilting. It's a very tough enemy, and it does a lot of damage if I'm stuck. So, that would have been a good example to start talking about some tilt. Like, that's a good example of tilt right there. It's like a succubus that comes by. It kind of freezes me in place. Can't control my character. I'm now prone to more damage. This character only can have 40 health. Can't go above. You can lose health, but you can't have it taken away from your total. So that's one of the challenges with this character and why the shield's so important. But if you could tell, if I get hit by a succubi, that shield drains real quick. And then I start taking damage. Thankfully, health popped up. But that doesn't always happen. So that's a good example of seeing what potentially could be tilting. But I want to go back into my point. I watch a lot of competitive League of Legends. And a great example, I'm not a fan of a lot of the LCS teams, but I am a big fan of LEC teams, so the European League. I really like the personalities on some of the teams and some of the players. Now, there was a player that I wasn't really a big fan of. And now looking back, I think I have a better understanding why the player acted in the way that he did. And I'm talking about the player, I don't know off the top of my head what team he plays for. No, he plays for BDS. And his name is Adam. Not a first name, that's his in-game name too. So what did Adam do? So Adam showed how bad tilt can get when Fnatic, and he was on Fnatic, because he wasn't on BDS the whole time. But when he was on Fnatic, he was playing with a player named Upset. Upset was known as one of the best ADCs at the time. He's still a pretty solid ADC. And what had happened is Upset had to leave the Worlds stage, which is like the highest level of competition for these people. This is where you play against teams in Korea. You play against LCS teams, so like North American teams. You play against Europeans, like other European teams. It's a global. It's called Worlds. So what had happened with Adam is he had gotten frustrated at Worlds because Upset was no longer able to. He said he had a family emergency, and Adam had made a bunch of tweets about that, calling out Upset, saying that Upset had essentially ruined the team's chances of really making it anywhere that year in Worlds. To make matters worse, one of the players, I believe at the time, because this was a couple years ago, had contracted COVID. So that was actually Hylissang, one of the best, I still believe one of the best supports for League of Legends. He had contracted COVID that year. And that really, the team was in a rough place, and you could see that it affected Adam a lot. He went so much as to make a twit longer that basically called out Upset for leaving Worlds to be with his wife, which was, I wasn't there. I can't make the assumption. That's neither here nor there. That is something that really... Boss fights are also great for Tilt. So, that is something... Oh my god. Okay. So that is something that could really tilt a player, is your teammates are, one is sick, the other one is not there. You believe because he is close with his wife that he's with it, so that he's, comforting her because she wants him to be away. So what Adam did, not excusing it, it's an example of tilt. And what's important... Oh, this is rough. I think I get another life. I do not get another life. Okay, so I need to pick my item to take with. I'm taking the shield because it's OP. So when that happens, when tilt happens, it really can tear apart a team, and that's what happened with Fnatic that year. They tried to reconstruct, and actually neither... I heard that currently neither Adam or Upset or even Hylissang are on the team, or even the coach from that time. So really that team went through some hard things at that time and did not really... It really kind of turned pretty crappy for them. So why are we talking about Tilt now? Why am I bringing it up? Hold up, that's not what I was gonna say. A little human moment there. Let's start talking about what I see as like the two different types of tilt. I think when I think of tilt, I think of how I personally experience it the most, which are two different ways that, if I were to make suggestions for, are not going to help me if I try to use a suggestion for one way for the other way, if that makes sense. So the two ways are, you can get tilted at yourself, you can get tilted at your team. When I get tilted at myself, I do shut down. I do like to try to be quiet on comms. It's frustrating. I feel like I'm letting people down, especially if I'm playing with a friend. And that's really tough. It's really tough to manage those feelings. And the other type of tilt, as I said, was being tilted with your team. I think that one's easier. That one's easier to identify because it's easy to say, my teammate fucked up this. My teammate's the one to blame. Now, it's harder to manage that tilt, I would argue, because that tilt is less self-directed, so you may not be aware of it. So I would say the first step overall is really try to know and understand what your tilt means, what it is, where it's coming from, and why you're experiencing it. Love that one. at that. Magnifying glass is great for gun builds. So when we're tilted, knowing what type of tilt we have could be incredibly helpful. The more we know ourselves, the better we know what works for us to feel good. And it's no different in gaming. If I'm not feeling great about something, that's okay. I could figure it out if I know why that is. And with tilt, I feel like there's a lot of kind of blanket answers that people give where they will say something like, you know, like, just step away. I think that's valid, but less likely. Like, anybody can write, just step away. Anybody could write, like, oh, it's just a game. Or learn from your mistakes. And I think learning from your mistakes, yes, that is helpful if you experience the self-directed tilt. Yeah, use that as construction. There's a big difference between self-criticism and that self-hate and that self-pressure that we put on ourselves. And that's a great example, is if you're able to learn from your mistakes without really being frustrated about it, I would say that's a good example of really trying to work on the criticism and what you can improve versus trying to focus on things that you're doing wrong just for the sake of saying that you did them wrong. Get out of there. So I think some more tips that might be helpful is when you're playing a game, if you notice that it is self-tilt, that construction should be balanced. You don't want to just know what you did right. You don't want to know what you did just wrong. You got to look at the positives and the negatives. If you want to do the good thing again, you got to acknowledge that you did the good thing. If you want to avoid the bad thing, you got to acknowledge that you did the bad thing. I find that as gamers, what we tend to do is we really tend to focus on those moments where we did everything right or our teammates did everything wrong. Rarely do we focus on those games where we went 0-6, fed our lane, and just completely butchered the game for our team. We don't focus on those games. In fact, try to remember a game that you had like that. It's kind of hard. I mean, it's most of my games, but that's besides the point. It's pretty hard to remember games where you didn't do well. And that's just a fact. We want to focus on those positives. So I think if we want to criticize ourselves and we want to acknowledge the things that we are doing wrong and to grow from them, I think that's important. Yeah, I agree. That is important. But we also need to talk about what are we doing right? What are the good things that we're doing? Because there are some good things, and that can help us be a good player. And unfortunately, okay, that might be interesting. By focusing just on the negative, we're going to just feel that everything we do is negative. And that's some of that self-tilt. By just focusing on the positive, we're going to think that everything we do is good and that our teammates are doing something wrong. And that's some of that negative towards our teammates tilt, the teammate-related tilt. So looking at both gives us a full picture. It gives us a clean idea of what's going on in the game. And allows us to stay present. I don't know if any of those are really quite good. So with this topic, let's go to some other things that are helpful. I think what's really important when I think of tilt directed at other people is taking their perspective and really, and I know a cheesy cop-out answer, but bear with me. When we take their perspective, let's really think about what happens in these games. A lot of people come off work. It's a frustrating day at work, and they just want to unwind and play some games. And sometimes those games are not frustrating. And when we play games to be happy, and now they're losing that touch, I'm in a rough spot. No, don't die in Belial. Please don't die in Belial. Or not Belial. I don't remember who this is. Oh, 4 health, and we did it. 4 health, and we did it. I can unclench now. So, when we experience that tilt, that, oh my god, I'm sucking ass. I forgot to stop by something. I don't know what that... Enhance this stupid thing. That's kind of dope. So when we start to get frustrated at our teammates, we don't always know if their day was absolute crap and they're trying to take the day to relax. I mean, let's be honest, gaming culture has a lot of frustrating folks involved. There's some people that'll say some things that will trigger us. And the more we kind of understand ourselves, the more we're able to really avoid those triggers. But that could happen to other people too. So someone could be in a game, you don't know, they could be hopping off from a game where they did really well. Let's say they were like 16-2, very well scored, but their teammate decided they were going to troll to make them salty, right? So that's not unheard of in gaming. And that person could be coming into the game with that. There's that baggage attached to it, and they haven't quite properly managed it. And if you're watching this video, that means you probably don't know how to properly manage it either. And that's okay. So, as we're talking about it, that's the whole purpose of these tips, is to learn about managing them. But, as I'm digressing here, we can't control what other people are going through. And it could be the worst day of their lives. It could be that the person, you know, just is going through a lot, and that doesn't make excuses for them. It could just be that they are unable to be that level of a player. That's okay. That's why there's ranks. If you're in bronze, there's a reason why you're in bronze. If you're not a bronze level player and you're in bronze, then you won't be in bronze long. Which might be a harsh truth. I had to come to understand that for myself, that I'm not a great player, and that's okay. Yes, I can do things really well. I can grow. I can learn. I can get better. But I'm not a great player, and I think that's part of that ego, is sometimes we think, yes, we are really good because we are coming off of a hot game, and then the next game, we start to do really badly. So we got to keep that in mind. Not everybody is experiencing that the same. Some people can be coming from some pretty frustrating games. So try to take a little bit of an understanding of what that person may have gone through, what their day is like. That might be helpful. I think one of my favorite things to do, because I have a hard time with that, myself, is I really like using, hang on here. So I really like using the mute all. Ooh, I've never seen that. I really like using the mute all function in games. It's kind of fun. The mute all button allows you to mute, teammates, mute enemies. Sometimes, I'll be honest, I've even been the person that'll kind of make comments after somebody makes a bad play so that their teammate gets tilted. It is really easy to frustrate a gamer. And, if we want to build that resiliency, it doesn't mean, maybe it doesn't mean that we have to build that resiliency. Maybe it means that we need to be able to work on either knowing that we need to avoid it, or we can find the right strategies to help us avoid reacting a certain way. And I think, you know, bans in games and stuff, they only go so far. That's not going to help somebody. If you're frustrated with a game, getting bans just going to be like, oh, great, another fucking thing that the game's giving you. That was fun. I didn't think I'd actually be able to get him with that. But it doesn't really kind of have that effect where we're like, oh yeah, you know, I did something wrong. I'm chat banned. I can't talk. No, it doesn't quite work as effectively. So I would argue that, you know, it's yeah, cool. We can have those repercussions and everything. But I think what's more important is either learning from ourselves what we need to do to manage ourselves, our symptoms of tilt, or what do we need to do to avoid tilt. So for me, I'm somebody who really does better with avoiding tilt. Not necessarily trying to manage it, but avoid it. And that's why I use the mute all function. Now, some games it's harder to do that because you do like to communicate with your teammates. And, you know, sometimes I do need to think of those strategies that will help me with managing them. And, you know, I think while we could tell each other to take a break, that only goes so far. I don't think taking a break is going to be the end-all, be-all to help somebody get through tilt. What I think will be more helpful is maybe we try a different game type. Maybe we play the game in a different way. And, you know, maybe it's less so we're playing ranked. Maybe we go for an ARAM in League of Legends, specifically. Maybe we try a different type of game. That's actually why I got into roguelikes like this, as I started tilting, and then I was like, you know what? I want to go back to enjoying games. And roguelikes were something new that I wasn't used to. They were frustrating, but they really got me back into enjoying games and really liking them again when they were starting to feel kind of stale. So nothing wrong with, you know, trying something new or trying a new game type. I think that, again, that can only go so far. I think what else could be helpful is if you make a bad play, sit and think about why you made that bad play. What was your thought process? I've made a lot of bad plays where I misread the information given to me. Or I don't look at the information given to me. There's a mini-map. Doesn't mean I'm looking at the mini-map. I think that's pretty realistic. Is just because there's a mini-map doesn't mean we're looking at that mini-map. Just because there's access to that information doesn't mean it's super easy to utilize that information. And I know that's very frustrating for some people, that we need to be the best. We're competitive. But gaming is supposed to be relaxing. It's supposed to be for leisure. It's supposed to be a break from the stress of the world around us. And sometimes that means that in order to get a break, we need to take a break. And I think that's okay to say I need to try something new. Like I said, this is one of my favorite games, and I got it from taking breaks from online games. And yes, this game is frustrating. You see all the crap I have to avoid. You see all the things I have to do just to hit the boss. And this is on an OP character that's pretty stacked right now. So it is okay to say, this game ain't doing it for me. You know? It happens. We're not glued to what games we play. We could play other games. We could relax. We can explore other ones. Yes, most of our friends might play Fortnite, Apex, whatever. I don't care. If what's best for me is not to play those games right now, I'm not playing those games right now. I'm going to do what's best for me in that moment. And that's why, again, I'm playing this. This has been really helpful for me. Oh, I should have done the other one. So just remember that, like, it's okay if we need to ask to try something else. Another thing that I would suggest, and this is where we kind of started the video in this area, is just kind of fitting because this is where we're about to end, is I think when we're tilted, it's totally okay to slow things down and try something different, like gaming mindfully. And I know I preach this a lot, but what is mindful gaming? Mindful gaming is, let's think about like Elden Ring. That's actually where I started really understanding this concept a little bit better. If I were to be my character in Elden Ring, I'm not going to just trust those notes that say jump ahead or you know, try jumping or try X, Y, and Z. I'm going to be a little bit more thoughtful. I'm going to think, is this a decision that I would want to make if I was there? Because if I was there, I don't have infinite lives. That world kind of sucks. You don't want to die to something stupid. So I might be a little bit more careful. And some of my decisions might be based around that. And some good questions for that to think about. What do I need to do to game mindfully? Some good questions for that is, if I was this person, that in this game, this character, let's say we're playing God of War or whatever, how does Kratos react? How would Kratos be in this moment? Not me. Not how would I be. How would Kratos be? You'll find that this might help with your game being a little bit more immersive too. Or if you're playing like you created your own character and you haven't really, you're like, I don't know if I want to do something like that. What would you do if you were in that situation, that world? How would you react? How would you respond? And then another good question is, hang on. Another good question for yourself or the character that you're playing is, what's motivating me, my character, or myself, or the character that I am playing? What is motivating them to do the decisions that they're doing? Why are they here? Why are they fighting? In League of Legends, it's like a tournament type thing. Not like a tournament, but it's like they're all fighting each other to, you know, see who's the best legend and all that. That's like some old lore, I think. I don't know if that's still quite the case, but you know, same thing. You know, that's the reason. But you know, let's break it down. If we're in that game, we want to win. And psychology has shown that positivity and positive praise in children and anybody really has shown to be more effective than pointing out what's wrong, or not, maybe not pointing out what's wrong, but shown to be more effective than flaming. So in games when we flame, you know, that's not going to be helpful. That's really good. Okay, I'll see if I can come back. So while we might want to be the one who's right, it doesn't always help ourselves. It doesn't help us. It's okay to drop the ego and let somebody else claim to be right. I mean, who cares if they're wrong or right? If we're going to engage in an argument, we're not going to win. And now you're actively doing things that could lead to you losing that game. Because now you're going back and forth with this person. Yes, they might be frustrating. Yes, they might be wildly wrong, right? He could tell you that the sky is blue. That's okay. I say, if you're having a hard time with Tilt, this is probably my last final big tip. If Tilt is really kicking your ass, try only communicating. If it's, you know, the type of Tilt where you're frustrated with others, try only communicating facts. This is something I've learned in my practice, that if I have to go to court for whatever reason, you know, anything that happens where it's a legal based thing. So if a client's asking for a letter or anything like that, I can only report facts. In the court of law, I can only report facts. And in order to avoid like getting in trouble or anything, that's why we do that, is we report facts. Otherwise, I don't know, the maybes don't really hold up, and they don't help my clients quite as well as I would like for them. That was rude. That was rude. I just got a bunch of power for it to be taken away. So by reporting facts, or not by reporting facts, but by only typing up facts, things that are happening in the game, no one can get mad at me for that. The jungler is bottom. It's a pretty tame statement. Oh, I went forward instead of up. And reporting facts also can help you limit what you're saying. That could potentially trigger somebody else. Again, we don't know what these people are bringing with them when they enter our lobbies. They could be really frustrated. They could be going through divorce or something. We don't know what's going to frustrate people. We don't know what's going to tilt people. Meaning, it's likely to happen that we get into a game and we tilt somebody without meaning to. That's okay. And it happens. But, if we want to avoid that, that's why we would only report facts about what's going on in the game. It's harder for them to get frustrated if we're only communicating things that we want them to be aware of so that we can better help our team. So I know this video is a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more push up the glasses nerdy, you know, direct, educational-ish, but I think it's very important to recognize tilt and to recognize that we could get very frustrated with these things. I'm not going to leave y'all hanging on the boss that I died to. I'm going to give that a try real quick. But I'm really hoping that you got something out of this tilt talk, because I think tilt is something that really plagues the gaming community. I feel like it's so common and very... You're not gonna get me. Oh boy. Okay, that's one life. I'm down 2 lives, man. There's so much more in this. I'm a little rusty. It's been a while. This is only the 3rd section of the game, and there's quite a lot more. But I've just noticed that a lot of people tilt very easily in games, and I'm one to talk. It happens quite a lot, It doesn't feel good to lose, but you're only helping the other team by getting tilted. It's really just feeding into and that's an example of something to be tilted by. I did not recognize what that heart did, and little do I know, it's not gonna give me anything because this character can't go up in health. And it was a heart. I probably should have known that. But like I mentioned, it's easy to get tilted. It's easy to get frustrated, but it's going to affect how we play, and then it's going to make it harder for us to enjoy these games. So if you're playing a game and you truly want to have a good time, really take a look at your tilt. What is it telling you? Where is it coming from? And maybe the answers aren't so cut and dry as what I said or what I've been talking about, but maybe there's a little bit more to it. Maybe there's some things that you could work on to really improve. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or even make other suggestions to help. It's kind of hard when I don't know the specifics of how you tilt. I know how I tilt, and we all tilt differently. And I think that's important to know, is that what works for me might not work for you. And I can make suggestions. Maybe some things will be helpful that you might not have thought of. So if you're somebody that still feels that they're having a hard time with tilt, give me a holler. Ask me something in the comments. I'd be more than happy to help you out. But till then, I'm CJ from Hippos R Us Gaming, and I hope you have a